Community Relations Commission meeting. We've got at least a few of us and some more trying to get in. So, Brandon said it's not letting me in. Well, let me text him back to check his email.
Brandon wasn't on that thread that you sent to that we got from you, John. So Brandon,
I just let Brandon in as a panelist.
There he is. Okay.
And then there's a Vanessa as well. Should I let Vanessa in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There you go.
All right. I see lots of folks popping on now. Great.
Yeah, I never got a panelist invite from Scott. I don't know. Unless it went to a junk mail or something, but I never got it. So I just was using the link that John sent.
Yeah, I just sent that out to everybody just in case. So, hi everybody. So, like we've got Tessa, you with us? She's joining. Laura, me, Micah, Lacey, and Brandon. So, hopefully it won't holidays and furloughs. But let's do what we can. I guess I think we ought to start with reactions to the. So here's the things I have early in our agenda about both.
John, I'm having trouble hearing you. I just wanted to check to make sure other people were able to hear you because I'm having I heard, we're going to touch base on some things, but then it started to crackle up for me.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't hear you very well either, John.
Okay. All right. Well, as far as I can tell, I'm on, but I am in the car, so the reception may come and go a little bit.
Yeah.
Micah, would you be willing to lead the discussion some on the anti-racism leadership gathering?
Absolutely.
On what people's thoughts are about getting book clubs, community-wide book clubs going again.
Oh.
And
yeah, I would be happy to give a overview of what has recently happened that we're describing and some of the initial feedback that we have received. 1 second, I'll pull up. Okay. So on December 15th, our Athens Community Relations Commission hosted an anti-racism leadership gathering virtually via Zoom, and we had approximately 90 participants, including those who were facilitating, and they also included folks from a wide range of organizations that registered via a survey that allowed us to kind of track the kind of participation that we've had, everything from Athens Equity Coalitions to Ohio University departments. And overall, we had 10 individuals respond to the feedback survey, and the overall responses were positive, particularly from the vantage point that the event helped people feel like they were contributing to an inclusive community and that they made valuable connections within the community, and that it helped reinforce their commitment to anti-racist work. Those were the three questions that really had strong, positive, affirming feedback that over 80% of folks felt that was helpful. And then in the areas for improvement, we had indicated that we had hoped that this event might help some move from words to action. And that is something that a couple of individuals did indicate, but it was still only more in the 20 to 30% of those 10 who responded when it came to moving from words to action. And then the second area for improvement that came across was helping them identify concrete actionable goals for their behavior. So similar themes there, but helping them identify concrete actions to support their goals, moving them more forward toward their goals. And that's kind of the main area of improvement folks saw, like moving from words to action and moving forward toward their goals. However, the piece about feeling more connection and feeling more motivated, and yeah, I think that those were really strong points. I will have to do a little bit of the cleaning of the data, but there were some folks who indicated willingness to have their specific comments included in a summary report. For example, just to kind of capture some of the motivations and what they had hoped would come next. But I think that's the best summary I can offer at this point.
Thank you, Micah. Can I ask a question? This was from, all of these comments were just from the 10 people who answered the survey, but there were 90 people who came. Is there any way we can sort of send a prompt to folks who didn't reply and ask to get more feedback? I mean, I'm glad for the feedback, but that's also a pretty small level of
sample
response.
size.
Yeah.
I think that's very easily done within our scope. I think I put the initial deadline for like the 23rd of December, thinking that would keep things somewhat fresh in folks' mind before the holiday really took our attention away from email and other things. But I'd be happy if the group supports it to send it out and say, we received 10 responses and would love to get more. And if anyone has suggestions on a secondary deadline we might propose, I'd be happy to include that.
It's a good idea.
Is there something the information is specifically being used for that it needs to be by a certain deadline, or just sooner than later so that it's helpful to move forward? Like, there's not a reason to do it like in a week versus 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Right. I know some of the questions will, I think, personally be informative for some of the MLK efforts that are underway for mid-January. But truly with that in mind, anything that came within the next couple of weeks would be still great.
Okay.
So maybe, does anyone, I know I have not been checking work email much at all, and a number of the participants might be in that same mode of not having to go in to email these days, but some will. Do you think, let's see, is there?
I think we should send something on Monday, the 5th, and give them like 2 weeks just to say, before the holidays, you participated in this thing.
Yeah.
We heard back from some of you, but we really want to know your experience. Please take 10 minutes to fill out the survey in the next week or so.
Yeah, I'm seeing that it's just Tuesday now, the 29th, and 2 weeks from now would be the 12th, which would still give us a week, almost just shy of a week before the 18th of MLK Day. So if I were to send the response today, just encouraging folks and asking them to respond by 2 weeks from today would be the 12th. Does that sound agreeable to folks?
I think what Laura says to wait until Monday would be better, because it's going to get lost in the fact that people are not checking their email with it being the new year. I'd wait till
wait till Monday and then just give them a week to, it's not a long survey. It's not like it's going to take them an hour to do. It's just going to take 10, 15 minutes.
Another spin on that too, Micah, might be, I'm sure we'll get to this eventually, that, you're working on some stuff, myself and John and some people working on some stuff. That might be a good way to spin, hey, you said you all are interested in sort of what's next. Here are some things that are happening. So it might be good advertisement spin as well about continuing the conversation in different ways.
Yeah, in the survey, we indicated some action steps or in the survey follow-up email, for joining the Facebook group for the Athens Racial Equity Group, and I think donating to a book fundraiser that we were doing around that Brandon had sent and shared during the event, and then also some opportunities to learn more about and pledge commitment to intersectional approaches to anti-racist work. So I think that if there were some things like specific meetings or events or donation opportunities that we wanted to include in Monday's reminder, that would follow, I think, the spirit of what we've been trying to do.
Well, it could be a reminder that MLK things are happening and they should keep a lookout for that.
Yeah.
I know the Racial Equity Coalition continues to meet, and so it could be a reminder that that is still a possibility. I know that the Athens County Foundation is doing this art of hosting training that has a racial equity lens, and that's coming up. So those would be things to remind of. There's probably others. Those are just the ones that are on the, top of mind for me right now.
So maybe folks should send a note to Micah today or tomorrow about specific things that you'd like him to include announcements about.
That's a good plan.
Absolutely. I just dropped 3 in the chat. Art of hosting, just as reminders, Athens racial equity meetings, and then MLK events. There's a website that's in the process of being updated. So if there are other suggestions, I'd be happy to include those, and I'll try to make the goal. A week from yesterday would be the 4th that this would go out, and I believe that's the day after the mandatory furloughs and holiday break ends for OU folks, and that should be good. Give them a week.
Yep.
The next Racial Equity Coalition meeting is on the 8th.
Friday the 8th. Yeah.
Yeah. Friday the 8th. So people could contact their Randy or Jane on links to join that meeting. I'm not sure how well people are hearing me.
A little bit.
Yeah, that was a good summary. Yep. I think we're all on the same page.
Okay. All right. The one very specific thing that I heard was people of the global majority hoping for another opportunity to meet with others of the global majority, and wondering if that's something that we as a commission want to coordinate. And I'm happy to try to do that. I want to hear what people are thinking about that. Thank you.
I hadn't heard that personally. Did it come up in just one support or one breakout group, or a couple times?
Brandon, I know you mentioned you heard that from some people. I did also.
Yeah, that came up in mine personally. A group reached out and wanted to do that, and I heard that from, I think, at least one other. But either way, I think it's something, at least trying it, because I knew a lot of people didn't, are not used to that. And trying to make it happen organically is not, but if we're like, hey, we're doing this again, wasn't that great? We can get that going, and that can become a thing, because I think there's a lot of power in that. And because I will just say, for my personal group, it was great, just being able to talk about the questions and stuff like that in a different way that, I don't think happened in the second group. So all groups were great. I'm not saying one was bad or other, but there was some richness, I think, that came in just being the global majority. And I think that's something I think we could easily do. If everybody didn't show up, we could make smaller groups or something, but I think a lot of energy happens there.
Should it be limited to people who came to the first meeting, or should it be a bigger net to cast? And how soon should we try to do that, given the other things that are also coming up?
I would suggest, first of all, would love that idea and would love to collaborate with UCM being part of that too, if that would be of interest. But I think it would be good to start with the initial group of people, since they kind of know what happened from that original conversation, have that group talk more, and then invite that group to think about who was not present and who should be present. And then maybe next time bring a friend.
I like that idea. Yeah, I think there's definitely something about continuing that specific group. And if we can't get those groups together, then at least they went through that experience, and then seeing, I don't know necessarily if it needs to be like people figuring out who needs to be here next, but like if it needs to be, there are people in my group that's like, why isn't this person here? And they ask me in that group, like, why isn't this person here? I'm like, I don't know, so, because I think some people think that they don't need to do this work, because they are of the global majority, or they're just their capacity is too low. I know I get to that point where I don't want to go to another meeting and talk about how bad things are, but if we can flip it into, hey, there's good things coming out of this, and meeting other people, I think that could be, something that come out of the meetings. So.
I definitely support the idea of getting that group together, and I think it could happen I think one theme that has really struck me has been the need for improved communication, because I've seen a lot of acknowledgement that great work is happening, but requests for help coordinating and better understanding how to enter and engage, or even just what we're talking about now. Can we just make it a little easier by introducing a date and a time and an option for folks to get together? I know another thing that didn't come out through the 10 limited responses that I received, but I heard anecdotally similarly, is that some of the groups did not necessarily follow the prompts that we gave if they did not have someone taking charge to do that. And
I'm shocked
about that. So in thinking about that for future events, it does stand out to me that there's like the right intention and spirit, but then you get in there, and whether it's a combination of introversion or extroversion or just different comfort levels, some folks didn't really have anything that they felt they could report out afterward because they had just kind of gotten to know each other or talked about a particular social justice issue.
Yeah, one of the feedback I got was if we need more facilitators, they knew where to find them because they were in that group that needed a facilitator, basically. And I apologized and said, hey, the goodness comes out of these conversations, but yeah, I definitely heard that as well, Micah. So yeah, that's something I think it's
One suggestion I had is even something as simple as saying, based on your names that you have listed, whoever is alphabetically first, have that person start and then go alphabetically from there. Because just having everyone who doesn't know each other, hasn't introduced themselves on a thing together, asking them to really share these sort of potentially intimate details about their experiences about this topic that's, can be hard to talk about, is a lot for people that don't know each other who might be introverts.
Yeah, I know in my first group,
All sounds good. Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, I was just going to say in my first group, I didn't do a very good job of facilitating because I was also worrying about trying to get people shuffled into breakout rooms. And so we ended up getting started late, and our group was kind of big because I was in the main room, so people kept getting added. And so that was not a very well facilitated event, that first group that I was in. So there may have, I don't know, people in my group.
Same time, I heard incredible feedback about the seamlessness of the transitions, but technologically, I know those in student affairs were saying, can we please use this for future programming models? Forget Microsoft Teams. It went from the user in perspective seemingly very well.
Clunky.
Nice. Well, lots to think about if and when we do it again, then.
Yeah. Mike, I just want to draw your attention. You may have already seen it, but I put the art of hosting training information in the chat. So it was a post that I just stole from the Athens County Foundation's Facebook page. And so I put a link to their Facebook page too. So you could just include all of that if you want. Also, while I'm talking about slightly different things, I just want to say happy birthday to Brandon.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Very important agenda items.
It is.
Birthday,
very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were planning to spend the last half hour on that, but we're used to it. So.
Yeah, I didn't get the agenda, so I just jumped right in,
Yeah. You can send all your presents to Eden Place. That's where I live. Go ahead and send them over. Yeah.
I was going to drop something off, but there was such a big pile on your porch, I just decided to skip it.
Too kind. Also,
I'll be glad to. Look.
I was going to say, Mike, you had the report out. Did you want for the fundraiser for the book club. I missed the beginning of the meeting. We're talking about email. I can get you the number, but I think it was like 3,200. But I have too much.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I think because what I sent in the email was a link to the Facebook group, I believe, and that would include some basic description. But I think if you could do a quick summary of those who attended were invited to donate, and that fundraiser generated this result, that would be really great.
Let me, while we're on here, I'll see, but I got another check today. So I think we're at like $3,300 or something. So your email is great. Everyone's great. Anybody's watching this is great. So I didn't do it. We did it. It's not my money. So it's awesome, but that'll help with more of this work, doing book clubs and stuff. So.
Your report include that that you started at 8 p.m. and stopped at 4 a.m.
It's true. There was some good music going on at 3:30 a.m. And if you get a chance, there's some wonderful dancing by myself and my Darth Vader. No, I was wearing my Christmas jammies. So, but yeah, let me. I think the last number I had was 33:43. I'll put it in the chat. 33:43. But we have two more checks. Shagbark sent a check and some other stuff. So I think might almost be 3,500, which is great. So
I will follow up then with, I heard Brandon, Lacey, and Micah all express some interest in the follow-up Zoom with Global Majority folks. So I could just follow up by email with all of you and see if we can find a date to do that. The other big item that I think is on our agenda is thinking about reconstituting book clubs. Tomorrow night, there's a reunion for people who participated in the last round. But what I'm primarily wanting us to think about and brainstorm ideas about is about the next round. And particularly on the community level, who do we want to invite? How do we want to structure it? What ideas do we want to do stamped again for people who haven't done it? Are we thinking of a different book? What thoughts do people have about that? Whether you facilitated those or not, I think I'd like to hear everybody's ideas. Did that come through clearly at all?
What was the last question, John? I heard everything else, but I think I missed. You had a question at the very end, right?
Well, yeah. What are your ideas about starting book clubs again in January and February with a new group of people? Should we use the same book? Should we meet every week? How should we do it?
I mean, my personal feeling, I'd like to see another group come in because I think more people in that family can then get more people. I'd like to do both, get the old people and the new people, but new people reading stamped, I think we've already done the book, so as far as the capacity wise, I think it'd be easier to do the same book. I don't know how the facilitators feel, but that's just my thought, getting more people in there. Cause I know some of the testimonies like I put out there, people love that space, and so I think same thing for the high school students, having that, so I think getting more people in there and then that builds the capacity to do more of that. And if we can get the old people in, maybe having a large event for all the people in the book clubs or something, just allows more people to be part of this experience.
John, you may not be able to see this, but I see in the chat that Lacey suggested that doing a topic-based once-a-month conversation that could be good as a follow-up to the anti-racism leadership gathering, just to pursue various topical ideas on a monthly basis for those who are interested. And in response to that, I was curious about the extent to which our commission would like to pursue ideas like that versus when we think about them in response to the reaction statement that we had, do we forward them to other groups like the Racial Equity Coalition to say, hey, so I guess I'm curious about kind of like how much coordination we want to emphasize of things that are kind of going on, recommendations and feedback versus how much we want to take on ourselves as a commission.
That's a good question.
Is there already a group that does anything like monthly topics around race, discussion topics? So there's a gap, apparently. I don't know if that really, if it fits within someone's already their mission, and if they just heard the idea, they'd say, yes, we'd love to take that on, or if it's kind of like no one's approach to this is really creating this opportunity, so we should fill it in until such an opportunity exists.
I mean, I think historically our commission has done a lot to host. We never managed to get our act together to be monthly, but to host conversations for people to come together and talk around a topic. And so if I think about an organization who brings people together to talk, I think this has been one of the things that we've done. So, but also we have this Racial Equity Coalition meeting coming up. So it could be the kind of thing that we float for folks to say, like, this is something we're thinking about for our commission. Are there other people who want to come or other people who want to participate?
They could partner with that.
Sorry, I had to observe somebody's lunch and appreciate it.
It's a little hard for me to call on people since since you're not always hearing me, but maybe we could just go around and everybody say a word or two about what you're thinking about the book club idea and what role, if any, you might play and like that.
I know. You want? I would actively like to be involved. Like I said, I am looking for programs to have UCM host or co-sponsor or whatever. So I'm definitely down with that. And I think that's definitely in alignment with UCM stuff. I'm thinking similarly, like UCM used to have a monthly program called Girlfriend's Guide to Activism. And it's kind of, in my mind, sort of the same idea as something like that, and a continuous, like, topical based conversation where we just invite people to, maybe have one person who's kind of either doing the talking or at least being the person to initiate the conversation. And then, with the new features of Zoom and stuff, we can do breakout rooms or, depending on the size, just have a small group conversation. So I do like the idea of doing something like that. I don't feel the need for any one group to, necessarily take responsibility or credit or whatever for any of these things. But even myself as a person on ACRC gets confused by the Racial Equity Coalition and which things are ACRC and which things are that group. And so I can only imagine from people that aren't on the groups being confused as to who's doing what. And like I said, not that it matters in that sense, but I think that we need to sort of consider being intentional about finding a way to streamline these things and not get people confused and, reaching out to them, ask about events that they're not hosting, reaching out to us about events we're not hosting. And it's great that we are mostly also involved in all of it, that we probably know the answers. But if we can find a way to sort of reduce some of that confusion, that might be helpful. I don't have a suggestion for the book clubs, minus the part where I said I'd also like to get one started for the teens, particularly maybe some of the people that were in our anti-racism class, but also expanding that to whoever else wants to be involved with that too. If and when we ever get to open back up spaces again, I think, keeping it small wise, UCM is a physical space where that would be a good thing to have things like that happen. Obviously the community center and stuff like that, but in terms of having both the space for it physically and the social justice focus, I think that would be a good spot as well. I know Athens foundation has that like office space upstairs. I'm not familiar with other spaces that they have to be able to do things like that. And obviously ACRC is just a migrant group based on who our members are and where we can find spaces. So, yeah.
Nomadic, yes. Yeah, I think UCM is also very welcoming kind of space for that kind of conversation. It's a little easier to feel comfortable there.
My sense right now, I agree with Lacey that it really doesn't matter in one sense, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're taking steps to let people know what we're doing in advance, asking for their participation or their cooperation, or even if they wanted to be co-sponsor. My sense is people are busy, and if someone else is taking the responsibility to organize something and they can participate in it on their own, when they're available, they're not going to feel like they've been left out of the conversation. The only other issue that I know of that's troubling some people in the community right now is the one that Damon Crane and Copwatch raised with regard to the recent police contracts and the alleged failure of the city to actually do anything about racial equity in terms of a survey of racial issues or an evaluation or an assessment of racial issues that stemmed from the racism as a public health issue conversation and decision back in July. So Damon Crane and the crew that's involved with Athens Copwatch also mentioned that they'd never heard of the racial equity conversation that we recently had. They weren't invited to it from their perspective. Whether that's an issue or not, but it is out there as part of what I think our responsibility is to respond to issues as they occur, whether we agree with them or not, quite frankly, and see what we can do to incorporate different voices in that feel left out for one reason or another.
Yeah, I'll just add that at least one member of that group was invited. I'm not sure if there was more than one, but at least one member of that group was invited to the recent conversation. Yeah, I think that's a very complex conversation that maybe we should put at the top of our agenda for our next meeting.
I agree. It sounds like just kind of overall next steps, once we get some more survey data even, would make sense as far as I think we had expected there to be the possibility that some folks would feel like they didn't know about it and that was okay, because we would rather have a targeted approach to the initial meeting and then figure out where to go from there. So I think that it makes sense that we're getting this feedback now and figuring out how we might want to broaden communication, even if it means somehow broadening that initial roster that we're putting together or working on corrections on.
Vanessa or Laura, any thoughts about the book club? Book clubs?
I think first, hello everyone. Happy holidays. I just wanted to say that I think it's a great idea. Thank you. I think it's a great idea, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And I like Lacey's idea as well. I'm also thinking if we can continue to expand and like work with different groups to bring them to the table and collaborate on like the facilitation or all those kind of things, so we can have like a different group of people always brought to the table, and they will also bring their people, and then we keep expanding and then keep spreading the message that we want to. But I think it's great, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
We had a lot of participation in the book clubs from teachers over the summer, and then also from community people. I'm wondering if you think students or university staff would be likely to participate in a weekly book club, or if the monthly idea is something that would work better for them.
I think a month, well, personally, I would say monthly. But I guess my question would be, would this be something that you wanted to include, like, is it mainly for the community, or you wanted to include like students and organizations from campus as well? Or do you want to focus more, or you don't mind, and you don't mind a mixture of everything? If you didn't mind a mixture of like the university people and the community people, then you could also collaborate with different students or department from the university, if that's what you were thinking about. But if it was more community based, then I was thinking more of like, that's why we had a lot more teachers from the high school and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming it's primarily.
I'm sorry, John, I didn't hear that.
I was seeing it primarily as community-based, but I think we could happily invite others.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, anything you want to add?
I feel like I would just echo what people have already said. I think the book clubs, I think it's a good idea. I would encourage to build from what we've already done rather than kind of repeat with the same people, kind of what Brandon's saying, like invite new community members to participate, and probably useful to stick with the same book for this round, I guess. I don't really know. I personally, though, I'm not sure that I have bandwidth to facilitate book club meetings in the spring. So my support is more like, I think it's a great plan, but if I'm going to be working with high school students, then I probably can't also do book clubs, just given the time commitments.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly the kind of feedback we need. So.
Yeah, when I think about book clubs, I am curious about like who the impacted audience primarily has been previously versus who we want to impact with this round, and from there where we might want to collaborate.
Yeah, I mean, initially it was really, there was a sense of community within the schools, right? Because it was mostly teachers from Athens City Schools, at least in some subset. And then we expanded it to be community members. But the impetus came from trying to, improve anti-racist awareness and, inspire some sort of sense of community around anti-racism in the school system in partnership with the superintendent and others. So if it is expanding to the community, then the question, I think it is a question. It's not as obvious, like what's the takeaway? What's the action afterwards? I still think it's valuable, but, and John, you probably can't see this, but in the chat, there's conversations around like, is book clubs by themselves aren't enough. It can lead people to feel like, oh, I'm so educated, I read this book, and then they don't actually take actions afterwards or change. It doesn't lead to systemic change on its own. So I think that's part of the conversation.
Yeah. Part of the expectation in the book club was that there would be action projects. And I think some of the groups were more successful in having that attitude and actually following through on that than others.
Sure.
And I think that probably was harder for the community groups where it was a relatively random set of community people, as opposed to the school groups where they had kind of an obvious action step in changing the way that people teach.
So an alternative model then, not to say that this is what we would have to do, but another way to go about it would be for us, rather than hosting the new round of book clubs, would be to create like like a set of like learning materials. Like if you want to host a book club around Stamped, here's a way to do it. Here's what we've learned. Here are some actions you can take, and encourage people to do it within their own communities or their own workplaces or whatever. So like, rather than inviting people just sort of randomly individually to sign up, but encourage like 5 or 6 people from your office to do this together. And I don't know, we might still facilitate it, but if we had, I don't know, we could share material so people could do it themselves too. Maybe that's later down the road. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about that. I was just thinking if it is, you know, it is a lot easier to do a collective action kind of project if you're actually with a group of people that you act together with on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Like within a church or within a workplace or a community organization or something like that. But if we're talking about like January, February, then, you know, I think it's fine to move forward, to invite people, whether they're by themselves or with a group, and just kind of build organically from there.
And what we did before in terms of community people was invite a few organizations, but we're kind of spread a bit, you know, so I would hear from random people. No offense to those people, you know, oh, I heard you're doing this book club, I'm really interested, kind of thing. And, you know, like we had 4 teachers from Alexander Schools show up, and, you know, we had never specifically reached out to Alexander Schools, but, you know, they, thanks to Brandon, we had an in there, and that happened too. So I would be happy to reach out to the people who did facilitate the book clubs, and I think there were 9 of us in all, and see who might be in for another round, and I can then share that with everybody and see if there are kind of specific ideas about organizations or groups that we ought to.
Ramey has commented in the chat that he'd be interested in sitting in on sessions before committing to lead one, because he's never been in a book club or tried to lead one. But I'm going to out him and say that he has led many things that were groups of people gathering together around common readings and talking about what they've learned. So I'm pretty confident in his abilities to lead a book club, especially in our model where we were co-facilitating.
I only taught for 49 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might have picked something up along the way there.
Yeah, I've participated in some of those. They're not terrible or anything.
And we did put out. We didn't have the bandwidth to have weekly planning sessions, so we met a couple of times to do that. And we did put out every week you know, here's some ideas for this week. Here's some questions you might use. And we had a uniform set of readings from the book that were suggested each time. So we made it a little easier on the facilitators than just doing it all by the seat of your pants. Well, I love all these ideas. I'm excited about some of the things we can move forward on. And if somebody would be able to save the chat and send it to me, that would be helpful for me in following up. I much appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm sure we can save the chat. I just will reiterate my plans to follow up with a invitation for folks to contribute to that follow-up survey. My suspicion when we talk about the book club is that the trend we're seeing, even with the limited sample of survey respondents, is that folks will say that they need more help moving from words to action, and like more concrete sort of things that are not so much talking and relationship building. And I think the book club might give us more of what as has kind of already come up, people saying like, yep, we're good at talking about it. That's what I'm starting to see from the data. It'll be interesting to see if that holds up, but my hypothesis is that we will see people wanting more help with the action stuff beyond book clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little. I was just going to say it's a little absurd to think that within 2 hours, if 90 people first meeting for the first time, that they're going to walk away with a bunch of concrete action steps. It's just like, no, that's not. Unless that was the whole purpose, was for us to say, like, here are 20 action steps. Which one are you going to take? Now let's organize around them, which isn't what we were doing. That wasn't the goal of the event. So I'm not surprised. I'm actually surprised that 4 out of 10 people thought that their participation did help them move forward. That's higher than I would have anticipated. So I'm all for helping people move toward action, but I don't see those numbers as any sort of failure of our event. Given what we're doing.
No, I think I agree, and I think if people came away from that hungry to want to take action, I'm really pleased about that.
Absolutely. Like 90% of them said that it helped them move further into their commitment and helped them build better relationships within the community. So when I think about an Athens Community Relations Commission, I think mission accomplished.
Yeah. Any final words to add?
I think I just, because I'm not on the Community Relations Commission, but I'd love to see this group maybe really finalize what those book clubs look like and where they live. Because I know we have the Racial Equity Coalition, but I think we're going to have that same issue going over there because, that's a hub of groups. It's not a thing that would do it. I think, John, maybe that would be an art group, but we would that would bounce back to the Community Relations Commission. But I think that's something that could really be a thing that this group does if it's like a subcommittee or something that, this group, because I think also with the change of membership, that might go away, and then it won't live anywhere. I think all of you here have done a really good job of pushing that forward, but I think it's your individual energies and how do we keep that going is something I'd like to see, and I don't know what that looks like, but just keeping that in mind, because when I was describing the book clubs, I even had trouble, I was like, it's area mediation, they're doing this. And, even listing who was part of it, because I wanted to make sure everybody was, represented, even though everyone had different parts in it, and I was part of the book clubs, so I think just nailing that down, if it's a Community Relations Commission thing, that's your gold star of, hey, we do this, or like Laura said, we give you the tools to do it inside your organization. It could be both, but really nailing that down, because I think it's very confusing. A lot of people who sent me money like, anyway, what are you doing again with this? And who does this help? And what? I'm like, well, it's book clubs, and so just more work for us to do. No big deal. And I'm not on the commission, so you guys can do it. I just want to throw that out to you on my birthday.
Yeah, well, and it is part of what part of the challenge. Anytime you're doing things as part of a coalition, that I think a little bit of confusion about exactly who's doing what and who's where does it live is inevitable. If anybody complains about them in any way, I definitely tell them that it's Brandon Thompson's field. So.
Sounds good. And Raymond, I wanted to share. No, go ahead, John.
Go. Well, just to clarify that, to some extent, it has really lived with the Athens Area Mediation Service because they've been administering the grants that have helped make it happen. So to the extent there's one organization that's a little more central, it's probably that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to let Ramey know that was my first book club that I had led. So I feel like he's probably got a good shot of doing well in it. So,
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great start to the new year. And we've got things to follow up on. So we'll do that by email, and we'll confirm our meeting times maybe for the next 3 or 4 months.
Where are you, John?
I'm entering Columbus. returning to Athens.
Yeah.
Thanks for providing us with such a scenic view of your drive the whole meeting long. It's been nice looking at your
Anytime. Where else would you like to? I can go to Zanesville if you want to see Zanesville. Whatever you want.
Drop me up first.
Debbie Schmeeding is driving, and by the way, she mentioned that Athens League of Women Voters might be another good partner to help with book clubs. So.
Yes.
Who's your dog
Thanks, everybody.
friend?
We did well. Oh, our dog friend. There you go. That's Rosie. That's Rosie Lucille.
Hi, Rosie.
Happy New Year, Rosie.
Staunchly keeping an eye on things from the back seat.
Yes.